Good morning and welcome to the third annual Contractors and Developers meeting. We're glad you could join us today, and we're sad that we're virtual. We wish we could be live, but we thought this was the safest way to have this meeting. I'm Pam Pepper, Mayor of Indianola, and I would like to now turn this over to Ryan Waller, our City Manager.
Well, good morning, and thank you for attending our virtual Contractors and Developers meeting, our third annual. Just some ground rules on this greeting slide that you should be seeing right now. I think everybody, or I hope everybody's familiar with Zoom this far into the pandemic, but we do have the chat function, the Q&A function down below. We will be taking questions at the end. Please feel free to enter those in as we progress. And we will make sure we get back to that. We are recording this, and we will be posting this on our website later on, and we will be advertising it via our normal communication outlets. So we appreciate you being here. If we can transition to the next slide. This is our agenda for today. We have some introductions. We have a State of the City video. This event has historically touched on our recent accomplishments and the goals moving forward. And since we're not able to do this in person, we did prepare a short video to highlight some of those. And then we'll spend some time going a little further in detail on these achievements, as well as some of the future initiatives that are currently underway. Want to thank our elected officials. Our elected officials are the ones that engage with our community and set the vision. They work closely with us and monitor our progress, and we're very grateful for their leadership and guidance. And our staff team is all listed there. We appreciate the work, obviously, that they do to transform that vision into a reality. So if there's questions, all their contact is available on our website. We are accessible and more than happy to address any sort of questions, concerns, issues, anything that you would need assistance on. So what we'll do is we'll turn it over to our State of the City video, and after that we'll turn it over to Charlie DeSell, our Community and Economic Development Director.
Hello, I'm Pam Pepper, Mayor of Indianola. Today I'd like to tell you about what's happening in our wonderful city. We'll start with some background information about Indianola. Then we'll go over our major achievements of 2020. Finally, we'll wrap by revealing some exciting news about the future of our community. Whether you're a resident, developer, contractor, local business owner, or someone who just wants to learn more about our town, I'm excited that you're here. And I can't wait to tell you about our community of Indianola. Let's start with the basics. Indianola is a suburb of Des Moines Metro with a population of more than 16,000. We're close to the airport and just a short drive from the heart of downtown Des Moines. Our residents enjoy a high quality of life with great schools and beautiful parks. And visitors love exploring our city's many attractions, like the Des Moines Metro Opera, the National Balloon Classic, and the Warren County Fair, as well as our nature trails and outstanding public library. Indianola is a financially strong community with leadership that's responsible with taxpayer dollars. We have a great credit score. The Government Finance Officers Association has recognized our community for responsible budgeting. And compared with our peers, we have one of the lowest tax rates in the state. Here in Indianola, we are taking necessary steps to ensure the integrity of our infrastructure, with some exciting improvements in the works. One example is our new state-of-the-art sewer plant. This plant is designed to meet the state's new and stricter guidelines for sewer plants. Once completed, the plant will be one of only a handful like it in the state. Rather than waiting, we are being proactive and investing in this important infrastructure now. Being proactive is an important part of who we are. Another exciting project is Streetscape, a series of infrastructure improvements that will transform our downtown square into a more inviting, pedestrian-friendly space where businesses thrive and residents and visitors are excited to spend their time. Thank you to the many community members who helped create this award-winning design, which we plan to break ground on in the spring. For me, one of the most amazing parts of living in Indianola is watching how our community grows and transforms over time, while maintaining the characteristics that make us unique. With all the families and businesses moving to Indianola, developers have invested in permits valued at nearly $200 million over the last 5 years. And in terms of an economic development, last year was one for the record books, both in permits and new homes. Now that you've gotten to know our community, let's take a look back at some of our achievements in 2020. As we all know, 2020 was a very challenging year, and one of our city's biggest accomplishments was navigating through this pandemic. I'm pleased to tell you that the city of Indianola responded to the pandemic without any layoffs or disruptions to any public services. While our facilities had to close, our team adapted to ensure that books and games could still be checked out from the library, while programs were offered virtually instead of in person. In addition to navigating a uniquely challenging year, our community had a number of other successes. We broke ground on the state-of-the-art water treatment plant, one of only a few in the state, to meet the Iowa Nutrient Reduction Strategy. We completed the planning process for Streetscape and secured $1.7 million in grant funding. We continued to build our vision for Indianola with our award-winning comprehensive plan, a long-range policy guide for the development of our community. This plan includes several key recommendations, which we have already begun implementing. And finally, in 2020, we completed a pair of multi-year studies of Indianola's roads and stormwater systems. With these studies, we can continue to invest wisely in a vital infrastructure with data-driven decisions. 2020 was a challenging year, but it was a challenge to our community, and the city organization faced it head-on, together. As a result, we are primed and ready for the future. Speaking of the future, let's talk about what's coming up in 2021. This year is all about building on our momentum. First, we're continuing to work on the projects I mentioned, including our new wastewater plant and our exciting downtown streetscape project, which we plan to break ground on this year. We are also evaluating and developing plans to address our growing city's needs. This includes creating conceptual plans for the new Public Safety Center, as well as a facility that will house our City Hall and library. In addition, we are entering the design phase for 3 major road projects. These investments will have a positive economic impact on our community and improve our residents' quality of life. As our community grows, we are continuing to modernize local policies, including development codes and rental housing regulations. These changes will lay the foundation for future growth while preserving and protecting our community's character. By planning ahead for these critical investments, we ensure that our community can maintain a high quality of life for our residents and a strong economy for our businesses, now and in the future. I'd like to wrap this up by thanking everyone who is listening for being a part of the Indianola community. I'd especially like to thank Indianola residents and members of our business community for working with us as we navigated a challenging year, as well as the developers and contractors who have invested and are looking to invest in our community. Here in Indianola, we know that our community is special. There's nowhere else quite like it. And we welcome you to join us as we continue to build our vision for tomorrow. Thank you so much for listening.
All right, thanks again, everybody, for joining us this morning, and thank you, Mayor Pepper, for that quick update on the state of our city. We quickly just want to go through kind of some of the achievements that were outlined in that state of the city, a little bit more detail here, and as well as some stuff that will be happening in 2021 from the development side of things here in Indianola. So first of all, some of our major achievements, again, these were touched on in the video. We've had a few capital projects that have been started, a few that were also finished this year. Some of the bigger ones, again, the Water Resource Recovery Facility, that is ongoing. Planning projects that we've had: Elevate Indianola Comprehensive Plan. That was a approximately 2-year process that the city undertook. That was adopted in May this year, as well as our Trails Master Plan. We completed our Pavement Indexing Study, as well as our Stormwater Master Plan. I mentioned the Pavement Indexing Study right there. Map here on the screen kind of gives you a good idea of the conditions of our road in the city. What it is it grades essentially roads on a scale, and you'll see that our average road was graded at a 70. So how does that compare to other communities? The MPO average, and this is all of the communities within the Des Moines area, that average is 68. So we're a little bit above where the MPO average is. And you'll see in some of these other like communities that we're just about the same as them. So again, that PCI does give us a little bit of a roadmap in the future where we can take a look at our road conditions and be able to build a capital improvements program and address our roads that need the most attention and get those up and to a higher standard. And then I mentioned the stormwater management plan. On the screen here, you can kind of see where some of our major corridors are on the streams that we need to take a look at, with some of our priority projects that also we'll be looking at through that. So looking at our growth and development, this past year we surpassed $1 billion in total valuation, and as Mayor Pepper noted, that we have added over $200 million in valuation in the last 5 years, thanks to the development we're seeing. 2020, we saw 200 building permits and 87 new dwellings built in our community. Both of those are near records for the city of Indianola. Growth and development, we saw 116 new residential lots platted within the 5 subdivisions that are listed on the screen here. When we compare, we almost have to go back to the last 4 years to just reach that number. So from 2016 to 2019, we had 114 new residential lots. And then for comparison's sake, the 4 year before that, we only had 70. So in 1 year having 116, you can see again, a record year for development in Indianola. Also did note here that we have 122 additional lots that have received preliminary approval, and we expect a lot of those to be coming online here in 2021. I mentioned the comp plan update. The map here on the screen shows kind of where some of our growth priority areas are identified. If you can see those green squares, those are our high growth priority areas, and then yellow and red, just like a traffic light, yellow is medium, red is low priority growth areas. I show that map to then show this map to kind of show you where our development is taking place in the community. A lot of the development we have taking place here in Indianola is occurring on the northeast side of town. That matches up with our growth priority area identified on the comp plan. And then we also show on the comp plan a high growth priority area on the northwest side of town. Again, we mentioned the sewer treatment plant that is coming online here soon. That is in the northwest side of town. So that area has been identified as a high growth priority area, but you can also see we have a lot of vacant ground on that northwest side of town that is ripe for development. Some of our commercial and industrial growth that we had this year, thanks to these businesses for finishing up on their projects. The Missouri Valley Line Constructors Apprentice Training Program out on East Iowa Avenue. We'll go into a little bit more detail on some of that stuff here soon. We welcome Ace Hardware to town, the Indianola Pediatric Clinic, Grip Performance, Scooters Coffee, Chumley's Auto did an expansion. There was a major remodel of Walmart and the Hotel Palmiere remodel. That is the former Apple Tree Inn. These were all projects that were finished up in 2020. So looking forward in 2021, again, capital improvement projects. We're going to continue on our water resource recovery facility. Mayor Pepper mentioned the Square Streetscape. That is a multi-year planning project that we hope to start implementing in 2021. The East Iowa Avenue paving project. East Iowa Avenue as part of the Missouri Valley project we mentioned here previously, and then Valley Place. Few planning projects we're looking at. East Hillcrest Avenue, that is going to be updating that East Hillcrest Avenue corridor from a rural cross-section to an urban cross-section to meet our current demands. That is a road into our industrial park and a road that leads to a lot of our current development that's taking place in the city. South K Street, that is a street inside the city that is a gravel road. We will be starting the process of getting that paved this year. When I say starting the process, we're looking at the engineering and design of that in this year, and then hope to start on construction of both those projects in 2022. Mentioned the streetscape. This is just kind of a quick picture of the planning process that we had on that and what that's going to look at with some of the expanded sidewalks, a little bit narrower roads that make it much safer for pedestrians who want to traverse inside the square and shop at our businesses. The East Iowa Avenue paving project, again, this is updating a quarter-mile section of gravel road to a paved road up to urban standards. This project is great for our industrial park because it also extends utilities out to some of our vacant industrial ground. So getting those utilities out there makes some of those sites, those industrial sites, more shovel ready, and makes those sites more attractive to potential industrial developers. Some of the things we'll be looking at as far as code updates in 2021. We have started our update of our development codes. This was something that was identified in our comp plan as a high priority, and we started that process just after we adopted our comp plan. We're currently in phase 1 of those code updates. Phase 1 includes a review and update of our zoning and site plan codes. We're anticipating that portion of those codes will come forward to both of our planning and zoning commission, our city council sometime in June or July. Once that process is complete, we will then move into phase 2, which is an update of our subdivision and sign codes. So we'll start that in 2021, hope to have that completed in 2022. We will have to adopt a residential rental housing code. State of Iowa does mandate that when a city reaches a population of 15,000, that a residential rental housing code needs to be adopted. Last census in 2010, we were just under that 15,000 mark. We fully anticipate with the 2020 census that will be above 15,000, most likely above 16,000. So there is a need to start that program, and we will start looking into those codes. The SUDAS, the Statewide Urban Design and Specification Program supplementals. We're in the process right now of bringing those to council for approval. We've been working with our development community on those to make sure that everybody reviews those, has a chance to look at those, and that they work for everybody. So any questions on that, just feel free to reach out. And then again, looking at residential forecast for 2021. Again, I mentioned we had 122 lots that have received preliminary approval. That includes the subdivisions of Summercrest on the northeast side of town, Ashton Park 7, Quail Meadows 4, as well as Williams Terrace, which is a 50-unit senior citizen apartment facility that is planned to be built in 2021. We also do have a few other areas that we have had inquiries on, and we do expect that number to possibly go up, but at least give us a stock of preliminary lots going into 2022. Some of the commercial businesses that are coming online in 2021, the People's Bank Administration Building that has already received a temporary certificate of occupancy, as well as Dollar Tree, they've also received their temporary certificate of occupancy. We expect Cabin Coffee, that's going to be located on Highway 92 on the east side of town. Crow's Nest RV Campground, that's something that is being built on the south side of town currently. Vice Construction is doing an addition to their facility out on West 92. Dollar General is looking to locate and has started construction of bringing a tenant space in for them. And then 2 projects that we currently have in review right now, All Creatures Small Animal Clinic that is out on Highway 92, and D. Armand Ford, the former Schottenkirk Ford, is looking at doing a major renovation to their facility on the north side of town on our North Gateway. So that's kind of a quick little bit more detail on what the city is doing, both what we've done in 2020 and what we look forward to in 2021. So we want to hear from you, and as was mentioned earlier, if we can get some comments and questions going in that Q&A chat box on the screen, we'd be happy to hear from you and answer any questions. Again, what does Indianola offer for you? Is there anything that we can do better as a community and as city staff to help you prosper? How was your experience with us in 2020? What can we do again to make sure you have a good 2021? And again, just any other feedback or comments or any other questions that you have, feel free to use that chat box, and we'll go through and answer those questions. And Ryan, I don't know if there's anything else that you want to add to this, but if that's the case, we'll just wait for some questions.
I think you covered it, Charlie. Appreciate it.
And if there is any questions, maybe I can just kind of start some dialogue. You know, we mentioned that we are looking at doing code updates to our zoning subdivision standards on that. And I know there's a few people who I can see in the attendees here that have been a part of that process. And again, we thank you for being a part of that process, because our hope is that we are adopting codes that work for everybody. And again, it's been something that we've identified since I've been here, and I think for a long time, that we've got some codes that need to be updated. So if there's anybody out there that has any questions, feedback, or comments on those code updates, we'd be happy to hear those. Yes, this meeting is being taped, and again, we'll get a copy out to everybody, get it up on our city website and on all of that, and we'll make sure that everybody who was invited to this also gets a link to where that will be. As far as the East Industrial Park, what size sites will be opened up in there? We don't have anything really in the works right now as far as lot sizes. We've got some 40-acre tracts out there, a little bit smaller tracts as well that are going out there. So we don't have lot sizes per se or anything developed out in that point. But you know, I think what we're hoping is when we get these utilities out here, that we will have some sites that will be ready. One of our goals of our comp plan is to work with the Iowa Economic Development Authority on doing some certified sites. And we've identified a few areas out there that could work for that, but just going through those processes. And that's something that's in our work program this year to accomplish. So we'll be looking at that. When will rental inspections begin? So state code does say that we have to have that rental inspection program online within 6 months after we hit that 15,000 population. We have not received the official 2020 or census numbers yet. So once we officially receive those numbers, that's when that window starts where we have to have that those regulations adopted within 6 months. So anybody on here who is a landlord in the city, that's something that we will do to work with you to get some regulations out there that work. We'll have public meetings and all of that stuff to get the feedback and get those regulations started. But I would anticipate, and I think we anticipate that we'll get those census numbers hopefully in the next 2 months here or so, and then start that process. And again, we've already started that process because we already anticipate. So we've looked at, you know, how we're going to have a program work as far as budget, some of our financials and stuff like that. So we've got a good idea, but we have not looked at regulations yet. So we're getting close to doing that. The 2018 codes that Capital Crossroads reviewed, we did adopt those. We had a few modifications to them, but there was a total of 11 code books that we adopted back in June. I think from our standpoint on the Capital Crossroads, so Capital Crossroads was a group of cities within the Des Moines metro area who worked together to have unified codes adopted. So we took a lot of those recommendations because we thought that it was a benefit to have unified codes throughout the region. So one developer or one contractor who's working in Indianola, but also working in Altoona can kind of work under the same standards. So yeah, we went through that process. That worked well. We liked it just because of when we got here and when we had to adopt those, even though the city didn't have anybody really on staff that was looking at those codes, but we found it very helpful. So we did get those adopted and they've been up and running. And so far the feedback that we've got on those has been good. And Ryan, there's a question on here about the police, city hall, and library changes. And if you want, I'll let you answer that one.
Yeah, so the police, fire, library, and city hall, this is part of a multi-year review. It started in 2017 as we were evaluating our staffing levels for police and fire. At that time, it was identified that our staffing for police and fire were below where they needed to be A plan was adopted by the City Council in 2018 to increase the staffing. This next fiscal year, so starting July 1st, we will complete that staffing level increase with the final addition of 3 additional firefighter paramedics. Once we understood what our staffing needs were, we started evaluating the facilities. So back in 2018, looking at the conditions of the facilities. This current City Hall, which houses our police and fire, as part of the evaluation, there's a number of costly upgrades that would need to be done. The mechanical system, the HVAC system, significantly outdated, a lot of costly repairs that would be required. But more so than that is the size of the building. It's not large enough to house all our police and fire, including all our equipment. So our police and fire are actually operating out of not just this facility, but also 2 other storage facilities. And we've had last year, there was a situation where we had a near drowning. Our firefighters got the call, suited up in our facility here, but then had to go to 2 other facilities to get necessary equipment. So when you're talking about public safety, seconds matter. And that was the main reason why the City Council directed staff to start researching that. So we've been working with a group out of Des Moines called the Formation Group. That was in 2018, identified the issues as well as the space needs that were required. Then in 2018, as part of the second phase, 2019 as part of the second phase of that, started looking at alternatives, what could be done on the site. And then in the fall of 2019, the direction was to pursue a new public safety facility on its existing site. And as part of that review, identified some issues with the library. And looking at the library site and having a new facility there, and then moving the non-public safety staff to the library site for a combined facility there, because the existing site where the police and fire station and City Hall currently sit is not large enough to build what's needed for our police and fire without having another site for the non-public safety staff. So community development, city clerk, finance, some of those support services. But when we were going through that review back in 2019, looking at the library, undersized, some safety issues, again, mechanicals. So in 2019, that direction was given to, as part of this budget year, had funding to secure the services of an architect to work with the city and the community on coming up with some design concepts before any sort of proposal would be taken to the community for official bond vote. So it's been a multi-year process. It started with staffing levels and then looking at what was needed from a space requirement. So a very lengthy answer, but a lot of time spent on that. There's information on our website regarding that, and certainly would happy to answer any other questions on that. If there's, do so here or via a meeting we can set up at a later time.
Got another note here, Steve Gray. Yeah, I really quick on that one, just to let you know, I was out on vacation the latter part of last week, and Tim was waiting to get some comments from me on that. We've actually got all that put together right now, and we'll be getting back to you here today. We were just going through that at about 4:30 yesterday on those comments, but apologize for the delay on that. We'll be getting with you here today. Just some background on that. When we get these reviews for site plans, buildings, just because of our staffing levels, we send those out for review from other agencies to assist us, and we had to send it to 2 different ones. So it did take a little bit of time, but Steve, we'll get back to you today. And then we, on the rental inspection side of things, yes, those inspections, no, they will not include commercial. State code does just state that those inspections have to be done on a residential side, not commercial. So we know that we have roughly about 2,200 rentals in the city. You add commercial in there and that number probably goes up pretty good. So Right now, we'll be focusing on residential because that is what the state mandates. I don't want to say that that does not at some point evolve into commercial, but at this point in time, at least for 2021, we'll just be looking at residential. And I believe that's all the open questions we have. Again, if anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the box, and we'll be happy to answer them. I think we've all got a little bit of time yet this morning that we can spend with you. So if anything comes up, feel free to type it in.
And if there are questions that you think of later, please feel free to reach out to us. You can call us at City Hall. Our information's on the website, and we'll be sure to provide you with that response.
Well, I'd just like to thank everybody for attending. Again, we'll stay on for a little bit, so if there's any more questions, feel free to answer. But if everybody else wants to get back to their morning, feel free. But again, for everybody who is here, thank you for joining us this morning. And again, as Ryan mentioned, if there's any questions, feel free to reach out at any time. Okay, we've got a few other questions that have coming up in the chat box here. How do I get on the list a bit on the new police and fire station upgrades? Brian, I'll take your information here and we'll make sure that you get on there. Not a problem at all.
And Charlie, just we're very far away from any sort of bidding out. We're just working on pre-designed concepts so we can have the conversation with the community. And so we are still a little bit a ways from any sort of construction, but we'll take your name and contact info. There's also a place on our website for folks to register to keep track of bids, RFPs, but also other information. You can sign up for text alerts or email alerts when things are loaded to our website.
Sorry, I was muted. I did not realize that. Randy asked if you could give an update. Again, I don't have the ability to give the attendees the ability to speak here, but if you want to type an update, I would be happy to read it out loud. I'm assuming Randy is Randy Hanna, since you said you'll start construction for one. Randy Hanna is the gentleman who is starting the Cabin Coffee facility out on Highway 92. So that was the one I mentioned that was out on the east side of town there by the high school, middle school. So good to hear. Randy actually wanted to reach out to you about something here and get an update on that, but great to hear that you guys plan on starting construction on that on 4/1. And we look forward to having you in our community.
Thank you all again. And see folks are jumping off. Again, thank you for your time this morning. We're sticking around until the last attendee jumps off. That's not a push. But again, if you have questions later on, please feel free to reach out. And we will be advertising this. So if there are questions that come up after you jump off, you'll be able to see them on later. We just have 4 attendees left. So if you have questions, feel free to type them in. For our 2 remaining attendees, if you have questions, feel free to type them in, or we can set up a time to discuss anything at a later time.